1 minute to air. We are now streaming on the live stream. I will ask planning and elected officials to please turn on your cameras if you can.
Hello, everybody. Good to see you, and looking forward to today's meeting. We'll get started right at 4 o'clock, or when we hear the sign from our tech folks.
Stand by. Open is rolling.
I'm going to wait until 4 o'clock, okay?
Yes, sir. You're live.
Good afternoon. I want to call this meeting a historic joint meeting between the Durham City Council and our Planning Commission to order at 4 o'clock on September the 14th, 2021. And I want to welcome all my colleagues and all of our friends from the Planning Commission. It's really good to be together with you all. And just very much looking forward to today's discussion. Before I make some introductory remarks and talk a little bit about our schedule today, I wondered if it would be beneficial to call the roll. Do you all do that, Mr. Busby, before your meetings? All right. So do we. So I think we'll go ahead and do that. Let's see if the city clerk is here.
Mayor Schul, Grace Smith here. I spoke with the city clerk and I agreed to call the roll for both bodies, if that's okay.
Thank you, Ms. Smith.
Okay, I'll go ahead now. So Mayor Schul?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson?
Here.
Councilmember Caballero?
Here.
Councilmember Reese?
I am here.
And Councilmember Freeman?
Present.
Councilmember Middleton?
I'm here.
Councilmember Freelon? I think he may join by phone later or may not join at all, so I'll just skip him. Okay, so I'm going to move on to Planning Commission. Chair Busby?
Here.
Vice Chair Amendolia?
Here.
Commissioner Baker?
Here.
Commissioner Cameron?
Here.
Commissioner Cutright?
Here.
Commissioner Durkin? Commissioner Harrod? Oh, I see Commissioner Durkin joining right now, so I'm going to mark her present. Commissioner Harrod? I see Commissioner Harrod on the call, but I don't hear him answering. We'll come back. Commissioner Lowe?
I'm here.
Okay. Oh, I hear you. Thank you, Commissioner Harrod. Commissioner Lowe?
Here.
Commissioner McIver?
Here.
Commissioner Morgan?
Good afternoon. I'm here.
Okay. Commissioner Cease? I don't think he was able to join at 4 o'clock. Commissioner Williams?
Here.
And the other Commissioner Williams, Zuri Williams.
Here.
Remember, we have 2 Williams now, so welcome today. Okay, that's everyone for now.
Thank you, Grace.
I know, welcome to you too. So that's everyone that I can account for at the moment.
Very much, Ms. Smith. City Council colleagues, Councilmember Freelon has asked for an excused absence. Can I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Freeman, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Johnson. Ms. Smith, can you call the roll, please?
Sure. Give me 1 second.
Sure.
Mayor Schul,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Caballero,
Aye.
Councilmember Reese,
Aye.
Councilmember Freeman,
Aye.
and Councilmember Middleton.
I vote aye.
Okay, thank you. I'll pass this along to the city clerk.
Thank you very much, Ms. Smith, and thank you for doing that. Friends, our agenda is pretty simple. I'll make some very brief remarks. I'll pass the gavel to Chair Busby for some remarks. And then we will hear from our staff about the Southeast Durham Focus Area plan. And then we'll have some discussion on that, and I'll chair during that part of the discussion. And then we thought we would move to a discussion of some of the related larger issues, the upcoming Bragtown Small Area Plan, the comprehensive plan. And Chair Busby will be presiding during that part of the meeting. And that's our agenda. So we're looking forward to it. And we're really looking forward to hearing from you all, as well as our staff, but really looking forward to hearing from our planning commissioners and members of the council. I'll just say briefly that I have really appreciated our staff for the work on this small area plan that they have begun, and it's really important. And I'm really appreciative that they speeded things up to be able to do this work before the completion of the comprehensive plan. They're wrapping it into the comprehensive plan, but at the request of a lot of people, have decided to do this early, and I'm looking forward to their presentation. But more than that, I really want to appreciate our planning commissioner. You all have you have a hard job, and I saw your agenda tonight. I'm not envious. You all have always have so many difficult cases on your docket, and I'm always so appreciative. Sometimes I watch your meetings, other times I read your comments, but I'm always so appreciative of the work that you do. It's so important for our community. One of the things we've seen for the first time since I've been on the council in the last, year or two, last year I'd say, as we have dealt with these cases in this region, we've had a real disconnect between the positions taken by and large by the Planning Commission and those taken by the council on similar cases or the same cases. We know that a lot of times there are changes that the developers make between when they go to you and when they come to us, and honestly that can often be very problematic. We often say that we wish our Planning Commission would be able to see these things with the full information from the developers, and I will say that Councilmember Reese has recently been, can I call the word lecturing, some of our developers about this to bring everything that they've got to the Planning Commission before it gets to us. But because of this, Mr. Busby came to me, Commissioner Busby came to me recently, and we started talking about this a little. We had a lunch, and over lunch we talked about the fact that we think that this map and this plan presents an opportunity for us to try to come together around some common goals for this area, and it can help be a good guide for us. So I'm appreciative of the staff. I'm really glad to be here with you all today, and mainly I just want to hear what everybody has to say. Today's not a day when decisions are going to be made, but it is a day when we really want to hear from everybody. So, Commissioner Busby.
Thank you, Mayor Schul. Yeah, Mayor Schul and City Council members, I really appreciate your time and this opportunity for us to come together. I echo Mayor Schul's comments in terms of the opportunity that the focus area plan presents and the opportunity for us together to discuss, provide feedback and implications of what this focus area plan represents and opportunities for moving forward. I did just want to note a couple quick things. One, given that the Planning Commission has our regular meeting, and it's a big one tonight, it starts at 5:30. We are going to have a hard stop at this meeting at 5:15, but we don't want to cut short the discussion on the Southeast area plan. That is really the core of today's meeting. And if that's what we we can extend our time on that discussion as needed. If time allows, and we can move and think about the bigger picture implications about Bragtown and the comprehensive plan and other opportunities, that would be great. But just so everyone knows, our hope is that the big part of the meeting will be the discussion on the Southeast area plan. Mayor Schul is gonna, as he said, he's gonna run that part of the meeting. I have asked and suggested that we'd love to hear from council members first and then planning commissioners, but we do believe we have enough time for everyone to be able to speak. But again, I want to thank you all for your time, especially the mayor and council members. Our meetings are quite short compared to yours. You deal with all the cases we see, plus a lot of other items, and it's the final vote. So it's the last chance for the public to weigh in. So really appreciate your time and your leadership and adding an extra hour and 15 minutes to your very busy schedule. With that, we are going to start off with a brief staff presentation, and then Mayor Schul will kick off the discussion. I also want to echo Mayor Schul in thanking our staff. The staff is doing an outstanding job, as you all know. They have added this to their plate along with the comprehensive plan work and all the other work that they're dealing with. So it's really appreciated and respected. So with that said, I'm going to hand it to Scott Whiteman for the staff presentation, and we'll go from there. Thanks again.
All
right.
My name's on the agenda, but Kayla Seibel will actually be giving the presentation, but I will be sharing the PowerPoint slides.
Great. Thank you, Scott. All right. Good evening, Planning Commission members and members of the City Council. Thank you for giving us a chance to present to you in a unique joint session, the draft recommendations for the Southeast Durham Focus Area, a component of Durham's new comprehensive plan. My name is Kayla Seibel, a senior planner with the Durham City County Planning Department. I'm here with Scott Whiteman and members of the comprehensive planning team to answer questions or provide clarity after a very brief presentation. Tonight, we are seeking guidance on the draft recommendations before planning staff begin using this guidance to review cases in the Southeast Durham area. The recommendations will remain in draft form until the entire comprehensive plan is considered for adoption. Here's a snapshot of the overall timeline for the comprehensive plan with the Southeast Durham Focus Area highlighted in yellow. As you can see, we are nearing the end of this part of the project and are simultaneously planning engagement and materials for the other plan components that cover the entire county. After today's meeting, we will give this presentation to the Board of County Commissioners and then hand off this work to the land use case planners to begin using this in their upcoming case review. All of this work is scheduled to start plan adoption in late fall 2022. On the next slide, for a brief background, this focus area was selected based on requests from the Planning Commission and the City Council for near-term recommendations on how development should occur in this fast-growing area due to the city's investment in the Southeast Regional Lift Station and Fire Station 17. This boundary was drawn as the primary area to be served by that lift station and is generally bounded by US 70, Sharon Road, NC 98, and the county line. The purpose of this focus area is to develop near-term recommendations that apply the plan's goals and objectives to a specific area, understand what residents see as existing needs and priorities, understand which land uses residents want to see, and recommend new future land uses that we're calling place types to inform zoning and annexation requests. The place types and policies specifically drafted for this focus area will allow staff, Planning Commission, and the elected officials begin using this guidance to inform decisions about rezoning and annexation requests coming in now. Staff may also better understand if there are refinements needed or issues that should be worked out and improved for the larger comprehensive plan project. On the next slide, in early March, we began seeking input from residents in a broad online engagement opportunity and held a virtual community meeting on May 20th. Engaged Durham Program Assistant Ami Mejia led interviews to reach Spanish-speaking residents to hear their needs and priorities for this area as well. We have included these perspectives in an engagement summary and in the draft recommendations. We have the full engagement summary and demographics in your packet on attachment 3. We now have draft recommendations that were shared with residents in late July. Here, residents could view an interactive map, read the place type descriptions, and review the draft policies for this area. We also had another community meeting on September 2nd. A list of survey responses and emails we received on the recommendations is found in attachment 7. We want to reiterate that this won't be the end of engagement with residents in the Southeast Durham area. We encourage residents to participate in the full plan as we take a comprehensive look at the whole county and seek to hear perspectives from residents who we don't typically hear from in digital forums. On the next slide, so given the pace of this section of the plan and the need for interim guidance to handle development pressure in this area, we focused our recommendations on key concerns. We also saw this as an opportunity to practice applying the community goals and objectives that were adopted this summer, our guiding document for the plan. And we analyzed this along with community input to understand which objectives could be furthered the most in this area. So beginning with the community goals and objectives and the input we received over the spring and summer, the policies and place type map accomplish the following. They encourage a variety of housing types on parcels that are not already entitled or recently constructed with a single housing type. They encourage commercial development to provide for daily needs, either through locations of the neighborhood services place type or recommending a mix of uses within the residential place types. They encourage complete neighborhoods and multimodal connections in the policies by echoing what is strongly called for in the community goals and objectives to prioritize residents who do not use cars. The recommendations strengthen environmental protections by recommending clustering or grouping of development away from environmentally sensitive areas. And on the place type map, we've indicated the natural heritage areas, floodplains, and Eastern Durham open space plan buffers on the map itself and call for minimal disturbance in these areas. And finally, we recommend phasing of new development with infrastructure through something we're calling the future growth area. That's east of Kemp Road and Virgil Road. And we recommend build out or infill of areas that can already be served by the Southeast Regional Lift Station and Fire Station. On the next slide, digging in a little bit more detail on the recommendations, each of these documents work together to assist planning staff and elected officials and residents to evaluate new zoning map change and annexation applications. The place types and policies developed from this work will remain in draft form, and staff can begin using this guidance immediately to inform decisions about those applications. In using the interim recommendations, staff may discover further refinements are needed and certain issues should be worked out with a full comprehensive plan. So these are snapshots of the 3 attachments in your packet. With that overview, we want to share key highlights from each of the focus area components. Starting with place types, the place types are a key to understanding the map. These are land use designations that work in the same ways as the future land use map you all currently use, but they're more detailed and provide more information about the kind of development that is desired. This guide outlines land use, mobility, green space, and service provision characteristic for every place type indicated on the map. So speaking of the map on the next slide, the place type map for Southeast Durham Focus Area shows where all the place types are assigned. We wanted to draw your attention to the new place types we've drafted for this area. The future growth area, that's shown in the hatched outline on the right side of the map. We recommend that significant development in this area not be approved until critical services and infrastructure have been funded. The future growth area includes recommended place types to guide development decisions after a new fire station is funded underneath the hatched area. So that's why you see place types underneath the hatching. The mixed residential neighborhood place type is a new place type shown in this brown color that is primarily residential, but on parcels that have significant environmental features that we want new development to build away from, as well as provide multiple housing types, small commercial or institutional uses if they're viable, and integrate green spaces and good multimodal connections. We revised a policy that we had in the initial draft to add some flexibility about the encouraging of multiple housing types that this may not need to apply to smaller, less than 20-acre sites based on the feedback we received. The 15-minute neighborhood, that's in the dark purple. That's a concept that has come up in each stage of our engagement so far as something that is desired as a place that's very walkable, with centrally located commercial and institutional and good multimodal infrastructure within just a 15-minute walk or bike ride. We clarified in the attachment that the 15-minute neighborhoods must include both residential and non-residential uses. However, the overall development may still end up being primarily residential. And finally, drawing your attention to the neighborhood services area. This is the dark red. These are smaller sites located usually at road intersections with good access to the surrounding neighborhoods. We heard a strong desire for commercial to serve the new and existing neighborhoods here. We believe these sites have the potential to provide small-scale basic essentials to the surrounding homes. Moving on to policies. There are 24 policies focused on the most impactful topics to development in this area: the land use process, housing and land use, transportation, and the environment. We wanted to highlight a few of these policies here. So in the housing and land use policy under 2B says the city and county will no longer accept proffers that restrict housing based on age. We wanted to explain a bit more on this. This is an idea that is found repeatedly in the community input that we've received and reflected in the goals and objectives that residents do not want to see neighborhoods that feel exclusive. We wanted to clarify here that developments are legally allowed to include private age restrictions, but the planning department recommends against proffered restrictions enforced by the city or the county. These kinds of proffers are primarily used to reduce the overall number of projected vehicle trips to avoid additional roadway improvement. In the transportation policy 3A, there is language echoing what is called for in the community goals and objectives about prioritizing non-car modes and creating greater access for residents in our community who walk, bike, or ride transit. We want to reiterate that this is a goal and that applicants are encouraged to be creative and meet this desire from our community within the constraints that we often see, like requirements from the state for state-maintained right-of-way. However, the staff acknowledges that under current conditions, cars will be the primary mode of transportation in this area. Finally, for the policies related to the environment, we know this is a key concern for the greenfield development pattern that we're seeing where a site is mass graded or clear cut. So we wanted to address this by adding several policies related to enhanced tree coverage expectations and environmental protection of sensitive areas. Residents have shared this as a value. It's reflected in the community goals and objectives. We've heard concern, however, from the development community that the combination of these policies may make some sites difficult to develop. So finally, I know that was a very brief presentation. We wanted to make sure you had enough time to have a joint discussion about this work. A final reminder that as we work with these interim recommendations and continue to engage with residents in the Southeast Durham area, that we will identify refinements to these recommendations and fold them into the larger plan. At this time, planning staff is recommending that these recommendations not be formally adopted, but this can still be used as a guide for land use cases in the draft form. We would like your specific feedback, any feedback you have on the draft recommendation to gauge the support of the commission and council before we begin using them. Thank you.
Ms. Seibel, thank you so much for that presentation, and thank you for the planning staff for all the work that you've done to get us to this place. We really appreciate it. Friends, I'm now going to open this up for discussion. Would love to hear your comments. I think Chair Busby suggested the council go first, and so I'm happy to do that. So any council member that would like to begin with a comment, or also if you have a question for staff at this point. There's a lot of people here today, so maybe raise your virtual hand would be helpful with, with an actual virtual hand icon there. Okay, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just want to also appreciate the staff for all the work that has gone into this plan. I really like this map, and I think it's really helpful in terms of helping us to think about when we get proposals in this area, like what we really think that we should be seeing in different places. There's been a lot of concern about lack of commercial development and figuring out where there are options for commercial development or for other community amenities, and what areas make more sense for residential. I had a couple of questions. One is whether there's a version of this map on our GIS system that we can so that we can go a little bit deeper into the areas and see more detail about specific areas. And the other question is about this future development area. Do we have anything pending in that area now that's going to be coming to us in the next couple of months or so?
Good question. I can try to answer those. For the first question about is there something more interactive in GIS, so you can dig deeper into the map? Yes, we have an interactive map on our website, and I'll get that and put it in the chat so you can dig in deeper. And your second question about developments being considered in the future growth area, I need to call my colleagues to make sure. Don't want to give the wrong information. Go ahead, Scott.
Hi, yes, Mayor Pro Tem, we do have one pending application in the future growth area. It was submitted well before these recommendations were adopted. So we have talked with that applicant about potential path forward, but it's still obviously up to the discretion of the council whether or not to approve that.
Thank you. What is it?
It is you'll probably be surprised to hear it's a large residential development. That is just east of Kemp Road, kind of where the curve is on the northern end.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Reese.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just want to thank you and Chair Busby for bringing us together. This is a fantastic opportunity for us to share our thoughts about this very pressing issue. And then hopefully we can have some time to talk about some of the related items as well. I also want to thank staff for the amazing work that went into preparing this map and these plans. I guess the central question I have, how does staff imagine that this plan and this map will be used by planning staff in evaluating proposals for annexation and rezoning? And how is it envisioned that the Planning Commission and the City Council would use this map and these kind of designations? What is the vision of the planning staff for this plan, and how it will be used by staff and by those of us who review these plans?
Thank you, Councilmember. Mr. Whiteman, Ms. Young, who would like to take that very central question?
I'll take the first stab at that, and the planning director can jump in at any time and stop me from saying something wrong. We intend to use these as policies that we will review the cases against, and we will ask the applicants to follow these. We would suggest that the Planning Commission and Council do the same, although it's not an adopted plan. But as you all know, that the council and the commission are not required by law to follow the plan anyway. In this case, you would just not have to pass a motion acknowledging that you're not following the plan, since it is not adopted yet. I see Sarah's on if you have anything you want to add.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Good to see you all. That is an excellent question, and one that the staff has pondered a lot. We see these draft recommendations as just that, just like we offer you all our professional opinion, including things that are not necessarily codified in ordinance or stipulated in policy. We would suggest that you consider these similarly to how you consider some of our other professional recommendations. So acknowledging that they are just draft until the full plan is adopted.
Can I ask a follow-up question, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
There are some things that the council cannot base its zoning and annexation decisions on. Are the recommendations in this plan things that the city council can base its zoning and annexation decisions on? Or is there going to be something in here that I say, for example, I'm sorry, this area is intended to have a mix of commercial and residential, but this project only includes residential. And on the basis of the recommendation of staff about due to this particular plan, I'm voting no. Or is that going to get the city in trouble? Are we allowed to do that? Help me understand the parameters of this plan. And is there anything in here that's going to get reversed by a Superior Court judge later on and the city have to pay the developer's legal fees? Because I'd rather not do that if possible. Thanks.
That's an excellent question, and I believe we probably have an attorney on the call that may want to chime in as well. But again, because these are not adopted, I think you definitely should consider them kind of with a grain of salt, right? Because you could potentially adopt something different than what the map shows, or wording of a policy that could be tweaked, as staff has said, before the final plan is adopted. So I think that there needs to be you need to take these into general consideration, just like you do when folks from the community step up in a public hearing and they say all sorts of things about their personal opinions or feelings about a project. There may or may not be based in policy or ordinance, and you still weigh those in your consideration. So I would just internalize that, but I would maybe not reference it because it's not explicitly, because it's not going to be adopted policy yet. And so we will also be cautious in how we phrase that in our staff reports.
Councilmember, anything else?
Well, I got a lot else, but I'm only one person, so I'm going to stop now.
Okay, thank you. Other council members at this time? Councilmember Middleton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, friends. This is indeed a historic gathering, so it's really good to see all of you. And I want to thank Chair Busby, his honor for sharing today. I want to also echo the commendations to the staff. Incredible piece of work. Now, this is a much heralded and anticipated moment, this small area plan for Southeast Durham. I live in Southeast Durham, so I'm personally vested in this work. Councilmember Reese's questions really go to the heart of what I was going to ask, not nearly as detailed or pointed as he, but it certainly is within the ballpark of what my concerns were, or questions, I should say. And you know, we really were looking forward to this small area plan, but it kind of sounds like here's a brave new world, stay the same. Govern yourself accordingly as you did before. So I guess from a nuts and bolts point of view, kind of dovetailing on Councilor Reese's questions, some of the recommendations that encourage mixed use in some development. So as a decision maker, who's doing the encouraging? Does that encouragement occur at the application submission point? Is it staff encouraging? Does that encouragement occur before the Planning Commission, or when it comes to us, do we sit at the dais and encourage the developer to do mixed use development? Just in a nuts and bolts kind of way, where would that encouragement occur as listed in the regs? Maybe staff can. Is this thing on? Okay.
Councilmember Mills, I'm happy to take a stab at this one, and if Scott or Sarah or anyone else has any additional insight, they're more than welcome to jump in. But I can say from the pre-submittal meeting is the first time we normally meet with potential applicants. And we certainly share everything we can. We try to be as open and honest about our concerns about a project, or what may appear to be speed bumps or hiccups that may come up in the process. So we're trying to be very transparent, and we, right, you know, like an example would be the comprehensive plan policies over the last, you know, several years, 15 years. When we have a pre-submittal meeting, we'd say, you know, make sure you're paying attention to these policies. Doesn't look like you're really meeting the intent of this policy, but we would like for you to consider this, because we're going to call this out in our staff report potentially if you do not address that. So yes, we do daylight our concerns early on in the process in these pre-submittal meetings, and even concept meetings. We have conceptual meetings with people that haven't even gotten to the pre-submittal stage yet. So wanted to just, if that helps at all.
It does. It does. Do you anticipate these recs in full form, in their complete form, if adopted, if this becomes policy or whatever? Do you anticipate this being part of the packet, the submission packet for? Are we going to trumpet this up front to developers and potential developers who are interested in doing work in Durham? How far and wide will this be disseminated?
I see Sarah has turned on her camera, so that's my cue to maybe let her go and speak. So I'll let her take it.
So first of all, I want to caution everyone, let's not call these regs because they're policies.
Recs,
And
RECS, not RE.
Okay, phew. Must be the bad audio on my end. Okay, I just want to make sure we're good with that. So yes, the recommendations, we are going to be transparent with the development community, that, you know, this was something, and I think the mayor said this at the beginning of the meeting, that was asked for in advance of the comp plan being finished. And so we need to be transparent with the development community that we've done this work, and we have been. They know that it's out there. We've gotten comments from several folks from the development community on them, and that we are going to be looking at projects as they come through in light of these, you know, and for a couple of reasons. One is this is kind of a trial run of these, to see, did we get it right? Did we get it wrong? Did we miss something? It's a way to test out and see how effective the policies might be, and have a chance to fine tune them before the final plan is adopted. So we do intend to be very transparent with the development community. We don't have everything figured out yet, exactly how that's going to work, what form it'll take, but trust they will not be blindsided by this.
Thank you, Sarah. There are lots of people on, so I'll yield here back, Mr. Mayor. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Council Member. Council colleagues, any other questions or comments at this time? Councilmember Cavallaro.
So just curious, how explicit will this be used in staff report to help guide us? So I know that, like, the map, we've seen a little glimpse of the map, I think, previous to today. So just out of curiosity, I understand that it's not, that these are basically guidances, but when we get our packet, how is that going to impact what we see on our end?
I think what you will see is in the staff report, we will make mention and say that the draft recommendations or the draft map calls for X, Y, and Z. So we will be very clear to call it out that it's a draft recommendation right now, but we will share it through the staff report. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and are you going to frame your language as in we believe X, but it's more of a guidance versus they didn't meet this, right? So it's not firm language, but at least maybe aspirational language?
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Council colleagues, any other questions or comments before I move to the commissioners? All right, and now I'll ask our friends from the Planning Commission, Chair Busby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to follow up on the really important conversation and the questions from council members. To start, could the staff share, again, I want to make sure I have this correct as well. For the moment, this is draft guidance. I think it's still really important, but how the draft guidance then may get wrapped into the overall comprehensive plan, and then the timing of the comprehensive plan. That it would be valuable to hear the general thinking on that timeline. And am I correct in that assumption that a lot of this will move we're just in a transition period where this may be draft guidance, but then will eventually become part of the updated comprehensive plan.
It's Chair Busby, that's correct. We anticipate that a lot of these policies and how we treat large new developments will be, while we get the bulk of them right now out in Southeast Durham, these areas are applicable countywide. So we anticipate we will certainly see as we go along over the next year or so if there are issues that we didn't see when we originally drafted these that need to be changed in the final comprehensive plan, but we fully anticipate that some version of these will end up in the final adopted plan, which would be sometime in late 2022.
Great. Okay, thank you. So essentially, I think the conversation we just had is really important and helpful, but we're in an 18-month transition potentially where we will be referencing draft guidance, and then at some future point, we will be referencing the updated adopted comprehensive plan that's gone through the official adoption process. I also just want to just add a few comments, and these are all just things that I'm really excited about. I think having a map is a really important step forward. So I think that is a very useful tool, the place type along with the place type map. The future growth area, I think, is a really important step, just to be able for us to be able to say, this is what we're thinking, and especially the notion that it would be tied to future capacity that we'd be putting into place, critical services that would come. And so I think that's a really important step as well. So I commend the staff on that. I really like the 15-minute neighborhood concept. So I'm looking forward to continuing to talk about that. But that, I think, encapsulates a lot of the things we hear the most often from community members as they look at development proposals. And then finally, I think the staff did a really good job listening. My experience on the Planning Commission, the three items we hear the most from our citizens that are concerns as there are rezonings are the ones that were highlighted in the report: housing, transportation, and environmental protection. So again, I'm very excited. I'm really interested to see how we all use this draft guidance over the next 18 months. I'll just offer, I know this won't surprise council members, I have been pretty consistently voting no on these plans in Southeast Durham, but my comments have represented the interest in having a plan to then move forward. So I know this is draft guidance, but for me, this is an important step because we have heard from the community, we have draft guidance on a plan with a map, and I believe it helps us then have informed decisions as we move forward. So I'm really excited that the staff has taken the time to put this together and just wanted to lift up those items. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Chair Busby. I'm going to call, I see 4 hands up, and I'll do it in this order. Commissioner Carmen Williams, Commissioner Morgan, Commissioner Baker, and Commissioner Durkin. So Commissioner Williams.
Thank you very much, Mayor Schul. First of all, would like to state that I definitely like this plan. I like the way that it is laid out. I think it addresses a lot of the issues that we see on a recurring basis. I definitely think that this particular session encourages more cooperation between the Planning Commission and the City Council so that it's more of a parallel interaction and opposed to a perpendicular or opposing ends. With that being said, I definitely have some consideration going forward, as I know we talked about the connectivity of neighborhoods, and there's an encouragement for these neighborhoods going forward to provide for non-car driven transportation methods. However, there were just millions of dollars spent on the East End connector to improve car driven transportation. So I think I would like to know more about how we're going to address issues with public transportation in this area beyond just creating neighborhoods that encourage that, because a neighborhood where we don't really have modes of transportation that help people who don't drive cars without having that infrastructure in place is concerning. And my other question, or at least comment or thought process, was the increased neighborhood connectivity. Though it does serve in terms of EMS, are we going to address the issues where the streets are not wide enough so that at night multiple cars are parking on the street, so it does not serve EMS to be able to travel between these interconnected neighborhoods? to service the people that we're providing for? And how do we plan to address the flooding issues that are being represented in highly connected neighborhoods because water travels faster over impervious surfaces than it does over non-impervious surfaces? Just things that we may have thought about or may not have been thought about that I think should be brought to the table. But overall, I think the map is an excellent reference point, and it is going to be extremely helpful as it is laid out to pull out, to be able to say, okay, this is where you are, this is where we're planning. This is what we've already thought about. So does this necessarily fit in the area? Because we've already had community engagement, which is a huge hurdle that we face when developers come in. A lot of times that's left off the map where the minimum is acknowledged. Those are my comments, and thank you, Mayor Schull.
Commissioner Williams, thank you so much. I'm going to ask staff, you heard Commissioner Williams' comments and her comments about this being very helpful, but also she added that there are other considerations that are on her mind. And I know that she's not expecting a comprehensive answer, but does staff have any comments on any of the issues that she highlighted? Ms. Seibel?
Sure. Yeah, thank you. I can begin and then ask Scott to chime in. So yes, Commissioner Williams, you hit on the major challenge for this area is transportation. And there's no great answer to that right now. The new place type map at least makes this area more transit ready. But unfortunately, there are no plans for significant bus service in the area. There are bus routes that serve or will serve the periphery of this area along NC 98 or along US 70 and TW Alexander. But because of this, it is so important that development in this area includes a mix of uses that are well connected for non-car modes. And Scott, I think, do you have some more things to add?
Yeah, in regards to the flooding question, I know that's always a concern when for folks that are downstream from new developments. Anything that's out here will be built to the city's stormwater standards. I think most of the flooding problems that we see in Durham are in the older neighborhoods that were built before that. So for the most part, these neighborhoods should be able to and be required to by law to contain the stormwater runoff from all their impervious surfaces.
I had a quick question, if I may. I don't want to hold anybody up, but is that a layer that we would be able to access via GIS to see where existing runoffs or floodplains are in reference to these developments or these land plots going forward? So as developers are building in, I know sometimes the development plan is not always required when it comes to us, but it would be helpful to be able to see how these areas would be impacted based off development.
So there would be, on GIS, we would have topography and floodplains that would give you an idea of where the runoff is going and where the flooding concerns are. And we are recommending that all floodplains in this area remain undeveloped.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Morgan.
Thank you, Mayor Schull. A couple things I was just saying is I really do applaud the Planning Commission for putting together this map and the definition of a lot of the place types that are actually referenced in the map itself. I think these are good tools, especially with the social pinpoint site that the Planning Commission, the Planning Department has made available to the public. And I do think this is very helpful in communicating. Since I live in this area, and I certainly get a lot of comments from my neighbors and folks that are concerned about the development in this area itself. One of the things I would make comment about on the place types is while it is very granular and very detailed from a sense of different types or different uses for place types, maybe we have too many of them and maybe way too granular, because I know we're trying to categorize things based upon, ideals there. But again, each application that we might get may not fit one or the other. And I thought maybe if there's a way to look at things like, mixed residential use or planned neighborhoods or things like that are categories, maybe collapsing them into something easier. It probably certainly more options than what we have with the tier system. But I do think that the planned place types, and again, with any kind of draft, it's obviously good for editing, and obviously it's better to have more stuff than not enough. The other part of it is that I do think that the study, and I'm encouraged to hear that there's going to be more interest in getting neighborhood and community people involved. And my thought there is we have some loud voices in the area. And so we certainly would like to make sure we not only hear their voice, but hear some other folks that do live in the area. And I do appreciate the staff's approach to try to reach out to it. I kind of play a dual role only because I live in the area and being a planning commission member. I'm very much interested in seeing development in moving forward. In some ways, it's kind of like we're getting all this after a number of applications have occurred. And I'm glad that at least we're getting something that we can kind of work with from a planning commission perspective. So I definitely encourage this. And I do feel like with other areas in the city, particularly North Durham, we've got another big area where I'm getting a lot of feedback from the community. These type of maps and these type of drawings, I think, is real helpful to communicate with the public and to try to avoid some of the confusion that occurs. My neighborhood is a lot of transplants, a lot of people that know how it works in other areas of the country, but they don't know how it works here in Durham. And obviously that's my role, is to try to help them and educate them who to talk to and who to get to, and really how it really works from a legal perspective in North Carolina. So again, that's just my feedback and comments, and I appreciate the help, and I also appreciate a better working relationship with council to kind of work together more in meeting these objectives. So I'm glad for the joint meeting.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Morgan. I wonder if someone from Planning Commission could comment on Commissioner Morgan's point about looking at the possibility of, I'm not sure I've got your word right, telescoping some of the place types. I don't think that was a word he used, but I'm trying to get close to it. Mr. Whiteman, do you have any thoughts about that?
We do. When we started putting these together, we tried to minimize them as much as possible, and we have collapsed them quite a bit. But what we find is Durham County is a big, complicated place. We have city, we have suburb, we have country. We have very strange things like large universities and a giant research park. So it's hard to narrow down the place types any more than we already have, I think. If anyone has good suggestions, we'd be happy to hear them. But at this point, I think it's the least we can do, the fewest we can do.
Thank you very much, Mr. Whiteman. And I know that if Commissioner Morgan, if you had specific, thoughts about a couple of things that might be combined, I know the staff would be welcome to that. So thank you.
I'll submit them to Mr. Whiteman.
Thank you so much for your comments. Commissioner Baker.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks to the mayor and to the chair for coming up with this idea for us all to meet. I think we've been speaking past one another, and part of that's just because we haven't been able to sit in the same room. There are many things that I like about this plan. Three things in particular that I think are excellent are the community engagement. Urban peripheries are really difficult places to engage with the community because there are a lot of different types of stakeholders with a lot of different interests. So that work has been good. Applying the policy spatially in this area, in a high growth area, is really important. We have good policy already. We had good policy in the old comprehensive plan, but it certainly wasn't applied spatially. So this is helpful. And then the other thing is the future growth area that Vice Chair Busby or Chair Busby mentioned, which is a really, really important concept and one that I'm glad is being introduced and something that we certainly need to, I think, institutionalize in a variety of different ways. So those are three things that I really like. And ultimately, I think that this plan is a step in the right direction. and obviously an improvement over where we are today. I guess what gives me a little bit of heartburn when I read through it is the generalized wording and the generalized nature, the shoulds, the encourages, sort of the lack of details and actions, which is to me what I think we really need at this point, because even the old or somewhat old / current comprehensive plan, it has good policy. There's really good policy, and there's very similar language in there. And I feel like at this moment in time, we're overdue for some real tangible change in the way that we do development and manage growth in Durham. Something we always say is the battle for sustainability will be lost or won by how we manage our growth. And I think that saying applies very strongly here. So, I'd like to see some stronger language and some more detail about implementation. I'd like to see us as a city more actively use our zoning powers, because zoning powers are, very, very powerful. We can do a lot with them. I just keep thinking about, the IPCC report, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is developed by scientists, and it says we need drastic and fundamental change to society. And we have to do it like immediately, like starting, last year. We need to change the way that we live and the way that we get around. And one of the easiest ways of doing that is by growing the right way, rather than going back and trying to fix things that we messed up in the past. So I guess ideally for me, like this plan would serve as a clear dividing line between the old ways, the old unsustainable growth and development practices, and then there's this plan, and then there's the new and the comprehensive plan, and then there's the new progressive, walkable, and sustainable development practices of a sustainable and progressive city and progressive beacon of the South. And I hope that this plan can serve that way. And if there are changes that we need to make, then that would be great. But that's the direction that I would hope that we can go on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. I wonder if staff could comment on Commissioner Baker's comments about the language of encouragement versus the language of requirement. I think it's something we all struggle with. And I wondered if staff could talk about how you strike that balance.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I think in general, when we're using policies and things like the comprehensive plan, we use more general language because it's applying so generally to so many places in the county, and it's not a law. And so when instances come up where there's possibly a good reason why the policies can't be applied, it's good to have that should in there rather than shall, because the shall gives you no wiggle room. But the fact that it says should does not mean that we're not going to follow them. Should means that it's a policy that we believe it should be followed in almost all cases. In ordinance and law, you don't have that wiggle room, and so that's when we believe that's where you need to have the shalls and the more concrete language.
Thank you very much, Mr. Whiteman. One thing I would suggest, Commissioner Baker, is, and you are not a shy person, and so I'm sure you've probably thought of this already, but if there are particular language changes that you think would be good, I'm sure the staff would be happy to hear them. And so I would just encourage that. All right, Commissioner Durkin.
Thank you. I also want to echo the thanks for the staff's work on this. I also want to thank all of us for being willing to address this area of the city and the county, despite the fact that so much development has already occurred. We're not looking at this as if it's too late and we can't do anything about it now. I really am super excited about the potential of kind of putting this on pause in a way to veer in a different course and make it in a path of development that we're all more ready and eager to see. I also am appreciative of the fact that we're also looking forward and we're doing this ahead of the comp plan. So we're saying neither it's too late or it's too early. And I'm really glad that we're doing that, especially in this part of the county, because I'm also in the boat of where I've been voting no for a lot of these developments because they don't meet what I want to see in Durham. And I'm excited to have this guidance. And while it's not a requirement at this point because it's not fully adopted, developers follow guidance both from the Planning Commission and from City Council. And so now we have a more, it's not quite codified, but a more organized method of showing the guidance that we want them to follow. And I'm excited to have that in our toolkit. Thanks.
Commissioner Durkin, thank you so much. Other comments from our commissioners or questions for staff? Any of our commissioners? Commissioner Amendolia?
Thank you, Mayor Schul. I first just want to echo the appreciation for having this meeting. I think it's great that the commission and the city council are collaborating, and I look forward to continuing that collaboration. And I'm also want to thank the staff for their work on this. To me, it's pretty impressive that we're doing this internally, and I know it's a big lift for staff and a drain on staff resources, but I appreciate this work and think it's meaningful for our city and our county. And I mostly want to talk about what I like about this plan, and I'll be brief, but I really just appreciate the guidance that we have. I appreciate that, to me, the broad takeaway from this is that we are using this land better than what we currently are. And that's what I've been wanting to see out of this area. It's not necessarily zero use, but just better use. Instead of seeing loads of suburban residential development, this plan gives us more of a mixture, and we start to see commercial development and more transit options considered. And that is important to me. I think there have been times where we have looked at cases and we've said, you know, we wish that we kind of had higher density on less land in this area instead of what we got. So I am looking forward to where this takes us, and I think it's going to be a good step in the right direction. One thing that I would just note is, for me, I would like to just strike out the word incremental from the language that we're using here. I think we all recognize that the changes in these recommendations are probably going to be incremental because it takes time to change existing development to conform with the ideals that we have currently. But I don't think we should necessarily acknowledge that in their plan, because our plan is meant to be idealistic. It's meant to be our best vision for Durham. And I think all of us can agree in this room, our best ideal for Durham is making the change to have a more sustainable community that works and benefits for everyone. One other thing that I just really like about this plan is that we explicitly have language about what we don't want development to look like. We have place types that say we don't want this moving forward. We would like to move away from this. I think that's very important because it is very explicit about what we would like to see and what we would not like to see. And to me, that's helpful because it gives not only a clear guide to the development community, but it gives a guide to our residents about the vision that we have for the city and the county. And I'm looking forward to hearing more of our community's feedback on that front. Those are really the only comments I have at this time. I have some other thoughts, but I'll save those for email comments to staff since we have limited time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Amendolia. Other Councilmember Reese, we're going to get back to you, I promise. But we've got, and I see your important questions in the chat. but I want to make sure that our other commissioners who haven't had a chance to, if anyone else, any of our planning commissioners would like to be heard with a comment or question at this point. I'm sorry, Commissioner Cutright, good to see you.
You too, appreciate it, Mayor Schul. Just a quick thought here is, one, I like the idea of establishing these different place types, in this region. I think that it has the potential to do some very good work in the area. One concern will be whether or not the things that we want are the things that developers are looking to do. And have we thought about or considered incentives for allowing developers to do this type of work and to meet the criteria for the recommendations? For example, more rapid approval of their applications or things like that that encourage them to sort of fit all the things that we want into their development. Maybe a slightly different approach, but sort of the same theory of Commissioner Baker, in that, these are things that we absolutely want, and, maybe putting a carrot out there and saying, to the extent that you can meet all of these things and create this place type that we desire, then you have the opportunity to move to the front of the line, if you will, in terms of getting your development or your zoning approved or whatever the case might be. Just wanted to see if that was a consideration for helping to push this along in the right direction, or if that's something we can even do.
Thank you very much. I'm gonna, I see Director Young is here to respond.
So that is something that we have as part of ongoing process improvements to the land use process, to other internal processes. We are considering things like that, in addition to balancing that with more robust engagement as well. So that is something we're looking at. I would ask you all to kind of park that for now. We need to get through what it is that we're going to ask people to do. And this actually kind of gets to what Councilmember Reese put in the chat as an example of not knowing exactly how these recommendations, which will hopefully become adopted policy at some point, kind of play out. And what I would say is that the reason I think we haven't seen some of these things in proposals that have come to you all is because there's nothing in our current comp plan or in our ordinance that requires it. And so these new sets of recommendations are establishing the baseline expectation of what we want to see. And we, as more and more developers come through and see that, oh, this is what the city and the county expect of development, the hope is that you will start to see that, because the things that folks include, we see time and time again are the things that are already in our comp plan or in our ordinance. So I take your point absolutely that we haven't seen any projects that do, like the example that was given in the chat. But I think that part of this is setting what that community expectation is for future development, and then hopefully development rises to that challenge.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner, for that important question. And thank you, Ms. Young. I really appreciate the discussion we're having, and Chair Busby and I have been communicating, and we're just going to go ahead and stick with this subject. I think we don't have that much time, and I think that we can come back together to have another discussion, but I think that's where we are. And I see Commissioner Morgan agrees with me. All right. Commissioner Cameron.
Hey, good evening, everyone. And like everyone, I thank all the work that has gone into this. I just want us to consider, and I know we keep getting down in the weeds because that's just who we are as public servants. We like to know the details. But, I want us to consider better when we talk about a variety of housing options, what that really means. that does not mean $250,000 townhomes and $400 to $500 single family homes. If we could really dig down into that and maybe also say a variety of income levels that go with that variety of housing options. Every low income person does not want to live in a townhome. I'm a whatever income person, I don't want to live in a townhome. So with that, we really need to be creative when we talk about the variety of housing options. I saw something about duplexes in the plan. That is a great housing option that we can explore more that I don't think is used enough in the city of Durham. And that we look at potentially a master developer concept, playing on Commissioner Cutright's idea, and then that master developer invites other types of developers to provide those variety of housing options at a variety of income levels. And that will get us, I think, what we are striving for in the city of Durham. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Cameron. Any comments on that from staff? Mr. Whiteman or Ms. Seibel?
Only that's a very good point from Commissioner Cameron.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Cameron. Also, the language about variety of price points and incomes is strongly called for in the community goals and objectives as well. So definitely something we've been hearing a lot from our community. Thanks for bringing that up.
Thank you very much. Other commissioners that have not been able to be heard yet? Anyone else have any comments? All right, I'm going to go back to Councilmember Reese then, who's raised a number of important points in the chat, some of which have been addressed. But Councilmember?
Sorry, everybody. Sometimes I can't find the mute button. I think Commissioner Cameron brings up an excellent point, which gets back to the question that I raised at the very beginning. If the plan did have suggestions for example, an affordability matrix, so that there were affordable housing options in these developments, I don't believe we could, as a council, then say, oh gosh, this project doesn't comport with the policy that recommends that there be 20% of the units in this project affordable for families making less than 80% of area median income. And so I vote no. I don't believe that we have the authority to do that. And so that's an area where I fear that putting a recommendation in like that risks giving folks in the community the impression that that's something we can do when I don't think it is. And my original question was about, are there other things in these draft policies and the guidance that are like that are things the community wants, and thing all of us want, but that we can't deliver via zoning? That's obviously a question for staff and legal counsel that we're going to need to hear from in the days and weeks ahead.
Thank you, Councilmember. I agree that's going to be a bigger question, but does anyone from staff want to comment on that at this point? I see Mr. O'Toole and Ms. Young. Mr. O'Toole.
Hey, this is Don O'Toole from the City Attorney's Office. I just wanted to reassure Council and the Planning Commission members that staff is running drafts of this plan, and I'm sure they'll be running other parts of the draft comprehensive plan by me. And I have been quickly reviewing that and getting any legal concerns I have with language back to them. And I think Sarah can attest to that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to mention, that all these recommendations and any future drafts, versions of these or other recommended policies will all be run through the Attorney's Office. We have tried to work really hard to address that very concern of yours, Councilmember Reese, and make sure that we don't have anything in here that is illegal, that we can't deliver on, and also that we just can't effectively address through zoning.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Young and Mr. O'Toole. Councilmember Reese, anything else on that?
I just had another example is policy 4 or draft recommendation policy 4B that reads in new developments, half of the required tree preservation should be located outside of required stream buffers. I agree that ought to happen, but I don't know that we have the authority to enforce that. And so that's, stuff like that is in here, and I love those ideas. Please tell me if we can do that, because that would be awesome. But normally we don't see projects like that, and normally we don't require that of developers. And I think the reason maybe in some cases is we're just weak and cowardly, but maybe the other reason is we can't. And I'd like to know the difference.
If I could chime in, that's a really good example of one where we have actually, that's an outgrowth of where staff has started to be a little more critical of projects as they come through in terms of what we consider best planning practices. This is a policy where we see a very clear lineage to a future ordinance amendment that would turn this into a shall, that would require or change the rules for tree preservation and how it's done. But there's nothing that precludes us from including this as a policy. And in fact, you've had at least one, maybe more recent cases where there were some changes made to where tree coverage was, it was not all in the buffers based on comments that staff had initially provided, then some feedback from the Planning Commission and some feedback from you all when you continued the case. And when what they came back with absolutely had moved some of the tree coverage and increased outside of what was required. So this is one I don't have any heartburn about.
That's awesome, because we really don't want you to have heartburn. Okay, friends. You all have a long meeting ahead of you, and I bet you want to go have an apple and some peanut butter before you do it. So I'm going to say just one word. I'm going to then turn it over to Chair Busby to adjourn us after he has some words that he might want to offer. Just want to thank you all for being here, council members and commissioners. I thought it was really good, useful, and I hope that we can do it again. I say we advisedly. That will be another we, not me. There will be a new mayor, and but I think that this has been extremely useful, and I hope that we can do it again. And I like the way it was targeted to one thing, and I'm sorry we didn't get to the other part of the discussion, but I think this was probably the best thing to do. I will just say I only differ with Director Young in one regard. That is, she said, you could take this with a grain of salt. I'm not planning to take it with a grain of salt. I'm planning to take this as very important guidance. I understand it hasn't been adopted yet, but what we did was the Planning Commission and the community and the council, we asked our staff to move this up in the planning process, knowing that it would have to be wait for final adoption into the Planning Commission when the comprehensive plan is adopted. But I like what Commissioner Durkin said about the way this can guide us, that and the way in which she discussed the timing of this, and I think that's exactly right. I'm planning to use it as guidance, and I'm sure it will be valuable guidance for all of us. Okay, I think that's all, except that to give huge thanks to the staff for doing this and really going above and beyond and getting it out here to us in a way that we can use. And I'm going to turn it over to Chair Busby for final comments and to adjourn us.
Thank you again, Mayor Schul, and thanks again to council members and also my fellow commissioners. This has been really productive, and I hope we do this again. And I just want to echo Mayor Schul's final comments. I'm also planning to use this guidance and to be looking at it carefully. It does represent our community. We've had equitable outreach and input, and I know my comments to council as we continue to see proposals in this part of our community will reference this draft guidance and then final guidance when we finish with our comprehensive plan. So I look forward to continuing the conversation. I did just want to tell the planning commissioners, this is just a granular issue. Our meeting starts at 5:30 at the same Zoom link. So you can sign off, or you can turn off your video and go mute, and then we'll come back on at 5:30. But again, Mayor Schul and council members, thank you so much for your leadership and for the really productive conversation today. Mayor Schul, I can't adjourn a meeting that you're here. Why don't you adjourn the meeting?
Okay. This meeting is officially adjourned at 5:18 p.m. Thank you, everybody.
So if I want to go to the planning commission meeting, I should just stay on the Zoom, right? I could just stay here. And I don't want to vote or anything, but I want all the pain and misery, you know. That's
Yeah, you don't go to enough meetings, Charlie. You definitely need
Clearly.
more meetings.
We'll be here all night.
have a
Bye,
great
y'all. Thank
evening.
you.
Good luck to y'all.
We'll be
Take
here
care.
till tomorrow.
Bye.
Lots of love.
Hey, Grace, are you still on here?